Like he said, my name is Marina, and I will be introducing Bryson. So Bryson is the founder of Scythe, a startup building a next-generation threat emulation platform, and Grim, a cybersecurity consultancy, and co-founder of the ICS Village, a nonprofit advancing awareness of industrial control system security. He is a senior fellow at the National Security Institute and adjunct senior technical advisor for the Institute of Security and Technology. As a U.S. Army officer, he served as a battle captain and brigade engineering officer in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom before leaving the Army as a captain. He is recognized as a top 50 in cyber by Business Insider, Security Executive Finalist of the Year by SC Media, was awarded Tech Titan twice, and is the 2023 SANS Difference Maker Award winner for Innovator of the Year. Please welcome Bryson on Choosing Your Own Adventure Group Interactive IR Scenario.
Check, check, check. Who remembers my keynote last year? Hold on, seriously? Who remembers my keynote last year? Really awkward way to kind of be in the same position again. But I'm ready. So before we get into the Choose Your Own Adventure, which is really nicely fitting with the theme of being the Dungeon Master in the Dungeons & Dragons and Stranger Things. And I'm not tap dancing like poor Josh had to do here. This is actually now part of the talk. So I created this because who's done a tabletop exercise? And you've been to one of my talks before, so you know how interactive I get. And for the first time in any one of the talks I've given, and I've probably given, it's a very large number, I don't even remember, I've never had a group that could escape me. Because I like to get into the audience and get interactive. So congratulations, you're safe. And I even debated figuring out how to run up there to still try to make a point of it, but I'm not going to do that. And so tabletop exercises are a great way to teach. They're a good way for us to communicate with each other inside as IT practitioners and IT security practitioners. It is a great way to communicate with leadership, and it's a good way for beginners and folks who are not in our space to get to participate. But the problem with hundreds of folks is I can't do a tabletop that way. So I Choose Your Own Adventure, which ties also back to the nostalgia. Coach E said he's a 90s kid. I'm a 70s kid. And we did grow up with these things called books that were made of paper. And I know what? We didn't have cell phones back then either. So the Choose Your Own Adventure idea is that there are hard-coded concepts built, or hard-coded choices built in. So you are all going to be participating. We as a group are going to go through this together. Now, what makes this industry so hard? You made eye contact. But you're up front, so I'm going to let you slide. What makes this industry so hard? Because you have the smart glasses.
Choosing a direction.
Choosing a direction. Fortunately for everyone here, there is a career hacking village with resume reviews, professional photo pictures, and mock interviews. We got you. Yeah, you looking away doesn't help you.
Lots of unknowns.
Lots of unknowns. Is security solved? No. Guess what? That's called job security. Woo! They can't fire you. I mean, you can get laid off from a company, but another one's going to hire you back. Security is unsolved, but there's an emotional cost to that. Everyone is here because of passion and interest. You are defending the world. It may not feel that way when you're like, I work in a 9-to-5 job in a cubicle, but Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, they've made us the forefront, and you are part of that front line. And because of that passion and your interest in what you're doing, it makes you very vulnerable emotionally. Think about all the things that we have been through as a country and a society in the last 4 years. It is taking a toll. Burnout is not just a word. And so I caution you to be able to put it in perspective. Reach out for help. If you're a vet, I do a monthly dinner. It's a private dinner. Reach out to me. I can't guarantee you will get an invite, but please get help, reach out. There's 3 parts that make us humans: physical, emotional, and spiritual. If you are not taking care of yourselves, you can't take care of everyone else. And I'm going to give you an easy one. When you are on an airplane and they give you the warning about the mask, what's the first thing they tell you to do?
Do yourself, not your children.
Mother of the year. Hypoxia is when your brain doesn't get enough oxygen. And the thing about it is you don't know that. It's like being drunk. You don't know how drunk you are. You just think you're funny and good looking. And the problem is, and the reason that they do that is because while I'm trying to help you put on your mask, if I pass out, I can't help you and I can't help me. Step 1, you have to take care of yourself first. That doesn't mean be selfish. That doesn't mean be cruel. That doesn't mean cheat. That doesn't mean steal. That doesn't mean take. But that does mean you need to look at yourself and go, where am I taking care of me? 2, then, who can I help put a mask on around me to help them? This is hard work, and it takes a toll. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. It's the only way we're going to go through this. Because for those of you who are wanting to come into this industry, you will then learn that feeling as a 3-day weekend approaches. Am I going to get it? Is my phone going to ring in the middle of Bryson talking, and can he find me? Feel free to point him out if you are sitting next to them. I'm looking. If you were up there, damn it, again. I'm going to put it into my contract writers for speaking, no second floors. Also a sign of my age, I used to be acrobatic and I would just jump up on the stage to impress you. I ain't doing that shit anymore. Let's go. You already got my intro. I do crazy shit. The ICS Village, I'm the co-founder of that with Tom Van Norman. I will be camping out there for most of the day. Also, just to put it on your minds, we have our own conference called Hack the Capitol. The 7th one is coming up in Washington, D.C. at the end of May. We will have a hybrid option, so for those of you who cannot make the trip up there, you will be able to watch what we're doing. It is the introduction to critical infrastructure, and we came up with the idea because we travel all over the world teaching industrial control system security, and it occurred to us, wait a second, these assholes are in Washington, D.C. with money and regulations. Let's do that with them. So we get members of Congress, directors from agencies, and a lot of govies who actually come to that to learn and to build relationships with you. They really are trying to get past the, what does the K Street lobbyist say? They want to meet you. They really do want to craft regulation and ideas that make this country safer with your input. So that is what we're doing with the ICS Village. That's where I'll be most of the day. That's me, actually me. I've had a lot of people like, wait, what? So a lot of people did some weird shit during COVID. I decided to not cut my hair or cut my beard. And it turns out if there was an Olympic sport for beard growing, I'd be the gold. That was in 8 months of not shaving. And so I decided to do a bunch of characters. So for those of you who know Cyber Gandalf, that's Cyber Gandalf. That's actually me. All right, we talked this. You don't have to be technical. We're going to be doing democracy. And by the way, democracy means whatever I feel like is what the answer is from what you're all raising your hands. That's how we're going to do it. You can ask questions. I mean, you've already seen I'm going to get out there and I'm going to ask questions for you. So you can ask questions. I want you to feel uncomfortable. It's the best I got. Discussion is encouraged. Next slide. I guess I did take out a disclaimer because I get the, well, actually crowd. It's a big surprise. Look, folks, this is a game. Like any game, There's parts of it that aren't quite accurate. There's parts of it that may not apply. There's parts of it, chill out, relax, okay? It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be educational. And just like the real world in any of these incidents, as you go through it, you're not going to have all the information. Just like real life. It's 4:45 p.m. in the office. I remember when being in the office is a thing, and sadly, who's being forced to go back to the office? Who's happy about that? Have you seen that meme where it's like come back to the office culture, and it just shows cubicles? Winning hearts and minds. Almost time for the weekend. Your mind turns to your plans. Well, let's be honest. It's mostly catching up on sleep with nothing to do, but you're hoping there's no incidents. The phone rings. Do you answer it? We're going to, can I take a picture of you with that? Is that Cochise? That sounded like Cochise. Who said that? Hold it up. There you go. Sweet. Not to be pedantic, is it your work phone or your personal phone? How many of you have a bring your own device policy at your company? How many of you that are not raising your hands knew there was one? I want to make sure I get you a sticker. I have a special sticker that is only for people who really participate in this talk. It's for her. So for those of you who said no, raise your hand. Own it. All right, employers, you see? Round them up. Who votes yes? Yes, it is. Hello? A clearly disguised voice speaks.
Are you awake?
What?
Find anything strange today?
Stranger Things reference? Strange? Do you want to, don't make me do dad jokes. I will stop it right here and I will start doing dad jokes nonstop. You play along. Jane from marketing, is that you pranking me again? I'm not going to fall for that one again.
Did you pick up your daughter from school today?
I don't have kids.
Yeah, sorry. I just couldn't resist messing with you. Anyway, you've been hacked. Send 10 bitcoins to the following wallet.
Your coworker, Ted, is looking at you. Your face must have given away that the call wasn't good. Who's ever received that call? Who's been through a ransomware incident and wants to admit it publicly? Yep, you already moved. Too late. Don't worry, for your public embarrassment, you will get a sticker. So, life choices, man. So, what was that like going through a ransomware incident?
Just long hours, very stressful, annoying. Yeah.
Just miserable. Oh. FBI. You get one for that too. That's cool. I'm going to assume everyone here is on the side of good. It begins. It was an unlisted number. Your mind begins to race. As the current on-site lead for the company's incident management process, the next step is up to you. And while you have done a tabletop in the past year, you never did quite get around to documenting the process. If you don't write it down, it's amazing how you forget. You know, because more important things. Sure, would be convenient to have that available now. Ted stares at you waiting, all right? This one's tough because it's the beginning and we got a lot of choices, right? So as he's talking about, what we're about to go through in real life would be miserable. What is ransomware? Free encryption software. Who said that? You can proactively test your infrastructure, or we can do it for free. What was that? A post-paid pen test, also a very good answer, right? Why is ransomware? Who said money? Really? Really? Think about it. Who's doing ransomware? State-sponsored. There are different levels of relationships between organizations and states. You ever want to get into detail about it, go check out Jay Healy out of Columbia, and he has a great table that walks through the different affiliations. So in 2020, I gave a keynote with Chris Krebs, who was the director of CISA at the time at RSA. The biggest takeaway from that keynote in February 2020, was ransomware. Ransomware is coming. And everybody said the part that gets everyone's attention, which is money. But money isn't the real motive behind all of this. Motive is different than what's happening, right? What actually turns into the ecosystem, because ransomware is not this monolithic thing. We have folks who specialize in breaking in and getting access. We have folks who build the ransomware, and we have folks who operate the ransomware. They're all driven by money. In fact, not only are they driven by money, they run themselves like they're a business. Some of them are large enough to even have HR. Criminal HR. I don't remember that part in The Godfather, but it's probably the one part of human resources I could even get on board with. But behind them are military and intelligence objectives. Ransomware is not just about money. The money is what gets the attention and imposes the cost beyond the denial of service. But there is a lot more going on behind that chessboard that you need to be aware of. Now, there is one of the adversaries that I mentioned that actually is primarily motivated by money. Who is it? North Korea. Why North Korea? Because they need money. My knees. Let's talk about that.
Well, North Korea receives most of its funding, well, not most of its funding, but a large portion of its funding for its nuclear weapons program through ransomware. I believe they were they had one of the largest ransomware, no, not ransomware, but it's in one of the Darknet Diary stories, but Jack Resider talked about how they pulled a lot of the money out of, I can't remember the name of the bank account, but that's an example of why they're monetarily, that has nothing to do with ransomware, but that's like an example of why they're monetarily motivated. But like you said, there is an intelligence motivation behind it also, but they happen to benefit also from money. They don't have a lot of the wealth that like Russia and China might have, but sanctions.
What is North Korea's currency?
Their what?
Their currency.
I couldn't tell you.
What is their currency? What is their currency?
Please.
I don't know either, because nobody fucking cares. It's worthless. Something only a few people know about me is I grew up in the Soviet Union. Totally. I moved here in 1990 from Moscow. Middle school was not kind to the fact that my fashion choice was still Europe in the 70s. Kids can be cruel. So the Russian currency, the Soviet currency, was rubles. They had the same problem. Outside of the Eastern Bloc, no one would take rubles. Just like, again, I don't know what North Korea's currency is because it doesn't have any meaning. And so to conduct their intelligence and military operations, they need hard currency. So there is an adversary that is literally like an organized crime state to accomplish these objectives. The others are using it as a foil for other national security implications. Okay, so to our choices. Who wants to call the CEO? I'm a CEO. Who wants to call the CISO? Power off all systems. YOLO! I will give you some life advice, and this is true. Take it to the bank. You can do anything once. Call the lawyers. I can't tell if you're tall or you're just really good at raising your hand, because that was like the highest hand I've ever seen. Check the endpoint logs. SIM log analysis. How do we pronounce that? Is it CM? Is it SIM? Is it SIAM? SIEM? SIAM? I personally have had Jen Easterly correct me on how to pronounce. I still don't do it right. Is it CISA or is it CISA? Whatever. Call the red team. Oh, come on. Nobody? We get lonely. Show us some love. Cut off all internet connections. Also see asterisk, you can do anything once. All right, it looks like check the endpoint logs had the most. The Unicorn Company Incorporated is a large multinational company. Please see your SEC filings and your 8K. That is a lot of endpoints to look through, and you're not quite sure yet what you're looking for. Without any data to narrow down your search, it's like finding a needle in the haystack. This is one of the hard parts when you work in a SOC. The systems are not there really tuned for you. You are looking in a haystack most of the time, and you don't even know if there's a needle. What is the solution to that? Not getting hacked in the first place. Good luck with that. No, I was just trying to be awkward. Like, I can't run across the beach in slow motion toward you. Hold on.
The solution is to get all the logs in one place before you desperately need them, and search on them with queries. Like this is what a SIEM does, right? This is why we should have looked at that first.
Okay. So as we're going through an incident, what could possibly be the worst moment?
It evolves right in front of you.
It evolves right in front of you. That's going to happen anyway. Keep both hands inside the roller coaster ride. You just have a kind face.
The worst thing that can happen is you can't find it. You don't.
Well, the good thing about ransomware is it calls you and tells you it's there, so we have found it. You don't know what you don't know.
If it doesn't exist, the search can be infinite.
If you're looking for something that does not exist, the search can be infinite. I will tell you, having done this for a long time, I can tell you I'm on a box and you'll never find me. That's how hard this is. The worst, high five, boom. The worst moment in any part of an incident is when you go to the backups. The backups don't work. They always work. When's the last time you tested your backup? When's the last time you tested your off-site backups? Because if they are local, I'm nailing those. The second worst moment is what we're coming to here. Yes, I am trying to build my SIM with visibility. Wouldn't you believe it that sometimes breaks? The logs don't always get there. I could have swore we put them in last week. Oh, oops. And then, most of us focus on visibility. Am I able to see all of the assets? Can I prove that? which is just putting more hay in the haystack. Here is a fundamental truth that is a different way of looking at all this stuff than you've ever thought of it before. It's all just data science. It is data science. Our jobs are data science. The fidelity that I can establish alerts which bring a human into the process and the time that that happens. Because here's another thing that will blow your mind. Most of you who have practiced telemetry have done it in a lab. And they put a rule in and it goes right into the sim and it's instantaneous. In the real world, it can be hours. You did the right thing. You had the visibility. You had the right alert. It still took 5 hours to populate from Defender into your sim. You need to know that. All right, so you give it a shot for about an hour and a half before Ted groans. I don't know why he groaned that way. Can we check the firewall logs? Maybe we can correlate suspicious outbound traffic there. So do we want to do that or do something else first? Check the firewall logs? You have to raise your hands, folks. Fine. Checking the firewall logs. You check the firewall logs, and sure enough, there are a few suspicious outbound connections, and several computers are beaconing out to them. How likely is that initial outbound traffic we're going to see going directly to .ru? Why? Why isn't it going directly to the operator in Moscow? Geo IP rules are blocking that because it turns out we don't do legitimate business with .ru, particularly since they invaded a sovereign country. Fuck them. Slava Ukraina. So where do they go? Amazon. Who said Amazon? That's a sticker. That is an answer. You can't script that shit. They go to cloud because AWS or Azure or any of them, I'm not saying the other one. I was going to say Oracle, but I hate them. Their licensing schema just is meant to create pain. So it is easy for the adversary to create what's called gray space, right? Going directly to red, where they're coming from, is a giveaway, and you're going to stop that easily. And so I need to create a benign connection. And what better way to do it than to have Trey saunter down. That's Trey. Say hi to Trey. Than to have it look like a legitimate connection. Who's heard of shadow IT? Who's heard of the shadow internet? You're going to go 2 for 2? Shadow internet.
Dark web?
Nope. Shadow internet is not the dark web. What's the shadow internet? There's no wrong answers except for the wrong answers, folks. You're going 2 for 2?
Would that be connecting a maybe another interface to a separate, like let's say for example you have a work computer and then you decide to connect it to your hotspot?
Could it be a rogue ISP that a customer at your company set up without your knowledge?
The best hackers in the world are your employees when you get in their way. Think about it. Get some calisthenics in.
I'm going to go with all those sketchy IP ranges that belong to like Russian ISPs.
Nope, those are easy. Those are easy. Who do we do business with? Other businesses. Do we have ephemeral or continual VPN or sessions with those other businesses? That is the shadow internet. There is an entire way that I can communicate around the world through all of your legitimate connections that you have for business purposes. Yeah. Try and find me. What is the most common command and control traffic? What protocol? .443. HTTPS. Why HTTPS? versus HTTP. Security. I didn't have to create some fancy Russian cryptographic system. You're giving it to me. We're going to take a quick trip down history lane. You're welcome to groan. World War II. The German army used the Enigma machine to be able to communicate encrypted around all of their units. You've all seen the movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, or however you pronounce his name, how they broke it. But before that, we were actually getting a lot of information. So some of you may realize this again, because you're old, like me. Things used to be done manually. Enigma machines were manual. And the operators that ran those machines that sent the messages between the units, it turns out there was a very particular cadence to the way they typed, which meant the Allies were able to determine who the operators were tied to what divisions. And so I could track troop movements tied to that, tied to times, even if I couldn't decrypt the message. The takeaway here is even if I can't decrypt what is inside of an HTTPS packet, there's still interesting metadata that you can use for analysis, all tying into what we're doing here for discovering our outbound. So we learned there are 8 machines that have reached out and pulled a page from pastebin.com, which is not normal behavior. Who has pastebin.com not blocked? Nobody wants to admit that. That's cool. Come to think of it, why is pastebin.com on the allow list to begin with? Now that you know exactly what to look for and where, you decide to check the endpoint logs. So now we have tied it down to 8 machines. We tied it to outbound traffic and a suspicious site that is involved. Sure enough, once you knew what you were looking for, the log query immediately returned exactly what was going on. You review the endpoint logs and see new files being created and encryption of key local files on 8 machines. Then a new file is pulled from pastebin. The activity is coming from an executable named more bacon. More bacon is also trying to establish SMB connections with other IP addresses on the subnet. A classic example of lateral movement as documented in T1570 MITRE ATT&CK. Who knows MITRE ATT&CK? I want all of you to repeat this with me. MITRE ATT&CK is not a bingo card. MITRE ATT&CK is not a bingo card. It is Russian roulette. I want you to think of MITRE ATT&CK as a periodic table of elements. The brilliance of MITRE ATT&CK is it finally gave us a common vernacular to be able to describe attacks. The problem is it's so useful and simple. You look at all those boxes and you're just like, tick, 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 tick. Do not do that. So just like a periodic table of elements, the way I describe the physical world with 1 part hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, when you're thinking of testing, do not just limit yourself to testing those things that way. Because an attack is state-based. I didn't steal credentials to high-five everybody. We're going to switch it to Beijing, around the opposite, and be like, yeah, we got there too. We got it. We Kerber roasted. I got the tickets. We're done. I stole those credentials because it advances what I'm doing next. That looks different on that computer, and that looks different on the network. So the detections we're building to log and to do these things need to be taking that into account. Because now we're going to do some Bruce Lee. Wah. It is not hydrogen and oxygen. It is water. You can sit in the reserve seat. You're reserved. Oh, you're on one. Our keynote. Because that looks different. That is showing up as water, which is not hydrogen and oxygen. So for those of you looking where to start, free tool by Red Canary, Atomic Red Team, who's used it, great place to start, but it's in the name. Atomic Red Team is where you start. From there, you need to grow to being able to build these complex pieces so you're driving enough signal, going back to our data science, so that these are working the way we want it, okay? SMB. Should SMB be leaving the perimeter? You need to be yelling no. It is a local file transfer protocol. It is leaving your perimeter. We have already seen a lot of reasons that is bad. But it is a great way to move inside because I look like legitimate traffic. Again, the same reason I'm using HTTPS is the same way I'm using every protocol that is already on your network. I am using your tools. Why would I create things that I don't have to? It's more work, and it's harder to look like you anyway. Hackers are lazy. Thank you for giving me the tool. In this case, the ransomware is using SMB to file copy self. So far, it appears that it is only managed to infect the 8 machines you've identified so far. We've got 4 actions here. Should we segment these 8 systems into a quarantine network? Call the CISO? Do you not like your CISO? What's the problem? Why don't you like your CISO? She's really nice. She looks so stressed out all the time. All right. Call the lawyers? Well, I understand why you don't like them. That's easy. Perform forensic analysis on the 8 systems with the morebacon.exe. All right, you all jumped. All right, you did this one quickly. Okay, segmenting. You've identified that the ransomware is trying to affect other computers through SMB, so you decide to quarantine the infection would be the next step. It doesn't help to fix some computers if the malware is still spreading. Has anybody ever had that happen before? You reset a system and it gets immediately popped? That happens. Could possibly reinfect the machines as you fix them. Ted, let's segment the 8 computers that are infected and quarantine them from the rest of the network. That's a good idea, but do we know the impact to the business? What? You are about to find out. Leroy Jenkins. Yeah, I guess we don't. Ted's a little wiser than you. If only our asset management included business impact and value. Who has a CMDB? Put your hands up. Who has a CMDB? Come on. Put your hands up. You all have a CMDB. Who has a CMDB you trust? No hands. And this is one of our challenges in security. We are customers to IT telling us what's there. You want to know a really funny hypothesis? The entire reason we do vulnerability management, is because we literally don't trust the CMDB. We as an industry are spending $11 billion globally with the 3 providers to do scanning because we don't have a CMDB. I mean, at this point, we've got an infection. Maybe it's worth the risk. You know I respect you, but maybe this is a safer as a decision made above our pay grade. Cover your ass, you know? Good call. This is a great time to call the CISO. We've confirmed the problem in detail, and now we just need a business decision. Call the CISO? Finally. Call the lawyers? We are calling the CISO. And hopefully none of you ever get a DUI. The CISO answers immediately. It's like, oh, all right. This usually is a woman, but I actually did this as a private choose-your-own adventure for a company. So the CISO was named Andy, so I worked him into it. Because, I mean, his people didn't respect him. It's, okay, fair enough. It is Andy, the woman, was expecting your call. You explained the situation. Have you briefed legal on the incident? No, we haven't, but apparently that option is missing. Apparently you did. You're fortunate. You did really want to brief the lawyers in earlier, so we're going to go break the 4th wall here on that. Why should we have called the lawyers earlier? Again, I get it. I feel your pain. Feel your pain. I feel your pain. Why should we have called the lawyers earlier? Why? What is legal's role in an incident? Raise your hands. Come on. Just like we know that purple teaming is because red and blue are primary colors, boys and girls. Congratulations for graduating kindergarten. You raise your hand. Keenan.
To protect the company and organization from any legal fallout that might come from the disruption of privacy and data.
And she raised her hand, you jackals. But yes, including your conversation with Kendra, that is the lawyer you did not talk to earlier, but you're lucky you did because quality control on slides, and her recommendation to make forensic copies for further analysis and proceedings. So beyond what Keenan had talked about legal liability, chain of evidence, chain of custody for evidence. This is where a legal threshold is required. If you cannot guarantee that evidence, then they cannot use it in court. And while you're going, well, what are we going to do against the Russians anyway? This is an operator problem. It's not about taking down infrastructure. This is where the Department of Justice and the FBI have been doing a lot of what are called MLATs, multilateral treaties, where they are working together, and we have actually been having impact on arresting operators as they decide to vacation in Thailand or other places. But I do hope they keep going to Thailand because we definitely get them there. But you have to have that kind of evidence, which requires either that training or the lawyers involved to make sure you're doing it properly beyond the liability. She takes a sip of what you can only assume is a Mai Tai since she's vacationing. Isn't it funny how executives are always on vacation whenever there's an incident, there's a problem? At least she answered your call. Right, so what do you recommend? I'd like to segment the currently infected computers to contain the malware. Let's see, you can practically hear her thinking. That's Nick's department, stand by. He's back on the phone with you, or she. You can take them offline. Nick says it'll have no impact, especially if we get them back aligned by Monday morning. We can get them done within the hour. You can hear her smile. That's great. If it works out that way, take the team out on me. Wilco boss. So we segment into a quarantine network. You successfully segment these 8 systems from the network, make copies per Kendra's recommendation, and can now perform forensics without fear of further outbreak. You identify a phishing email to a new employee that was assigned one of the 8 systems. Why would I want to phish a new employee? First of all, how do I know they're a new employee? Attack view. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the greatest OSINT treasure trove of everything you could ever want. And you all brag about it all the time. I'll tell you also as an attacker when I'm building my target package, do you have jobs that tell me what software you use for defensive purposes? And you brag about that too. It's what we advertise for the job. Yeah. So I know you use CrowdStrike. I know you have Splunk. I know you're using Zscaler. And based on statistics, I know 50% of the time you're doing it wrong. Either with default credentials or you installed it improperly. 50% of security software fits in that. Furthermore, a new employee's psychology is I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to look like I don't know. So when they get that phishing email, they haven't been trained and they don't want to be the person sticking up and be like, hey, I think I've got something. No, I just want to look helpful. They are a very vulnerable population. This led to remote code execution and deployment of a new malware, more bacon. The new images did not have the latest updates, leading to a privilege escalation vulnerability that was exploited automatically by the malware. With the privileges, credentials were dumped and lateral movement attempted with the local admin password. The 8 new systems all had the same local admin password, which allowed the malware to propagate to the other 7. Data on these systems were encrypted, exfiltrated, and now show a ransom. Thankfully, these were new systems, so they didn't have much data. You easily rebuild them since you just have to reformat with the golden image. Within the hour, the team is done, and there is no further malicious activity. You know how to make the tough decisions, and now the next order of business is employee morale. The CISO said she's treating us to margaritas at Guava Bees. On to unlimited free chips, salsa, flair as far as the eye can see, and the Ultra Grande Super Classico Margarita trademark. To celebrate your win and close out another successful week at the Unicorn Company. Congratulations. And because, I think he was the CIO, he was a Marine, so you can, the crayon number Rita. You can find me at the ICS Village all day. Have a great conference.